Welcome back, family. Hope you guys are doing great. I wanted to share something that is hopefully going to help clear up the confusion as to why so many people have started keeping all 10 commandments and what their motives are. I can't speak for everyone because I know that some people have different motives than me, but for me personally, it's been quite the journey and it's not something I've always done. I'm new to this. It's only been a few years, if that. And it's come to my attention that a lot of people assume that I'm doing this to be justified by works and that I'm doing this to be lazy. And if you don't know what that 10th commandment is that I'm referring to, I'll go ahead and say it. It's the Sabbath, and it seems to ruffle a lot of feathers. People that you would never think would get angry about it are angry about it. And so I'm assuming that some of you have experienced misunderstandings about your motives. And so I'm hoping to clear up any confusions about motive and paint a better picture as to why I started doing this in the first place and how it's really changed my life and been a blessing, even though I was afraid to do stuff like this back in the day because of what I had been taught about the law and the commandments and how I would essentially be putting myself under some curse if I was to do this. And that's just not the case because I can tell you from experience, it's been a blessing. But in spite of the blessing, there's a lot of accusations flying that I'm a Hebrew rooter now, or I'm a Judaizer, or I'm justified by works. And it's okay if you've thought that. I just want you to understand why you think that and how you're wrong. And so, one of the first verses that I want to share is one that really clears up your identity confusion because most of us look at ourselves as Gentiles growing up and that we're just separated from the people of Israel, that we're different, that we're becoming a part of the family, but we're still somehow different. And so, the prophecy that we're going to look at, because eventually we're going to get into the historic aspect. But the prophecy is one in Isaiah. It's not a letter, it's not spoken to some group of people. This is from the Most High, spoken to everyone. This is something that is going to continue to come true. And so this is thus saith Yahuwah, because he is speaking through Isaiah here, and he says, Thus saith Yahuwah, keep ye judgment and do justice, for my salvation is near to come, and my righteousness to be revealed. Blessed is the man that doeth this, and the Son of Man that layeth hold on it, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hands from doing any evil. Neither let the son of the stranger that hath joined himself to Yahuwah speak, saying, Yahuwah hath utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, Behold, I am a dry tree. For thus saith Yahuwah unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths and choose the things that please me. That is key right there. That choose the things that please me and take hold of my covenant. Even unto them will I give in mine house and within my walls a place and a name better than of sons and of daughters. That is powerful. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Also, the sons of the stranger that join themselves to Yahuwah to serve him and to love the name of Yahuwah to be his servants. Every one that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it and taketh hold of my covenant, even them will I bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon mine altar, for mine house shall be called an house of prayer for all people, not just the Jews, which people seem to think represent all of Israel. They're just a small part. There's the lost tribes as well. And it's telling us here it's for all people. And that Yahuwah, which gathereth the outcasts of Israel, saith, Yet will I gather others to him, beside those that are gathered unto him. This prophecy reminds me of the words of Yeshua when he was helping his father gather up those lost sheep and setting things in motion in a way that had never been done before. We've talked about this before, and forgive me, I get emotional with this particular verse and even Isaiah now, understanding what it means. And so this one here, this is in John, where he's saying those famous words, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, since he isn't a shepherd and the sheep aren't his own, sees the wolf coming, abandons the sheep, and runs away. Then the wolf drags them off and scatters them. The hired worker behaves like this because that's all he is, a hired worker. So it doesn't matter to him what happens to the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life on behalf of the sheep. Here's where it gets emotional. Also, I have other sheep which are not from this pen. I need to bring them, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock. It's the same flock that we're being gathered to, guys. And there's one shepherd. This is why the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. This is powerful. And I think a lot of us grew up feeling like we were outside of that sheep pen because we were for most of our lives. And like it said in Isaiah, the Most High gathering others to him, you have this claim from many people, including myself. This was my claim. I'm a Gentile. That stuff does not apply to me. But we're being gathered together. And like it said in Isaiah, it's the things that please him, those that are keeping his Sabbath. If it wasn't important, he wouldn't have mentioned it in prophecy and made it a commandment. There's only 10 of them. It was one of the 10. And so that there shows me it's important to him. And so that confusion about who we are, that we're just Gentiles, starts to go away when you look at what they were saying in the New Testament that lines up with those prophecies. Where you see here in Romans, where he says, there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek, for the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. Paul wasn't making these things up. We've already seen it in prophecy. And here again in Ephesians, where he says, now therefore ye are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the households of God. For by one Spirit are we all baptized into one body, whether we be Jews or Gentiles. It's one body, one sheep pen, one house. So many different ways you can say it, but that's the key there. There's no difference. And then you see again in Galatians, same thing. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female. For you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you be Christ's, then are ye Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. Powerful stuff here. And it continues on that same theme. Here's Romans yet again, where it says, not as though the word of God hath taken none effect, for they are not all Israel which are of Israel. So being born of that bloodline doesn't mean that you're Israel necessarily. They weren't perfect. You look at what the 12 tribes have done throughout time, their offspring, generation after generation. They haven't all been of Israel, even though they were blessed to be a part of that bloodline. They didn't accept his name, or if they did, they took it in vain. They didn't keep it. And so it goes on to say, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. That is, they which are the children of the flesh. These are not the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. And in that same chapter, he's quoting prophecy, I believe, where he says, I will call them my people, which were not my people, and her beloved, which was not beloved. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there shall they be called the children of the living God. Isaiah, talking about Isaiah here, that same prophet we read earlier, also crieth concerning Israel, Though the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, a remnant shall be saved. And then back to Ephesians. Sorry, these are not in any order. It says, wherefore, remember that ye being in time past Gentiles. So it sounds like they once were Gentiles in the flesh, who were called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands, that at that time you were without Christ. Talking about the past, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now in Christ Jesus, ye who sometimes were far off are made nigh by the blood of Christ. For he is our peace, who hath made both one, and hath broken down the middle wall of partition between us. Powerful things here that show us we aren't who we thought we were. And for many of us, we don't know who we are beyond just a couple of generations. I know that's the case for me. If you start looking past my great grandparents, I don't know what's out there. My wife, she can go back a little further than me, but most of us don't know. And so we just assume an identity that's placed on us. We don't know if we're one of the lost tribes. We don't know if we're a Jew or if we're from the tribe of Levi or whatever. There's so much out there we just don't know unless the Father reveals it to us. And so coming into this Sabbath keeping aspect of things, it's not due to us thinking we're Jews or we're Judaizing and trying to get into the Hebrew roots movement. There's a reason we're becoming a part of that family, that a part of that seed, so to speak. And this language is nothing new. When you go back to Exodus, you see the same language where it says there's one law shall be to him that is homeborn and unto the stranger. The same law. No new laws for the strangers. And in Exodus 20, further on, it says, the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah thy Yah. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy strangers. Why? Because it's the same law, it says. And so the strangers are doing the exact same thing, even though they weren't native born. And so now let's look at some of the darker history of how the Sabbath was changed. We know that Constantine and the creeds of Rome and a lot of that play into the shaping of modern day Christianity. If you haven't looked into that, there's a lot that went on. There were creeds that were written that weren't in the word, but they were added. They were sort of like how the Pharisees had their added traditions. These became new vocabulary words. Things like the Trinity and the Lord's Day, the new Sabbath day, Sunday. These things were a big deal. And so Constantine, back in 321 AD, says that on the venerable day of the sun, because there was sun god worship going on, says, let the magistrates and peoples residing in the cities rest, and let all workshops be closed. So this would have been what we refer to now as Sunday. And for most of my life, I thought Constantine was this guy who became a Christian and helped, stop the persecution. But that's far from the truth when you look into what continued to happen as a result of some of the things that were done while he was in charge and then afterwards. And as you see here, he's on a coin after his alleged conversion into Christianity. And you see here as late as 324 AD, he's on coins with Sol Invictus, a sun god. And these things were minted 12 years after he was allegedly converted into Christianity. And so a lot of these things are paying homage to the sun god Apollo, who helped guarantee him his 30-year reign, allegedly. So that demon that the moon missions are named after. Nothing too shady there, even though you look at our moon mission imagery and it looks like, you can see that same sun god right there on the moon, even though it's a moon that we're going to. They are honoring their sun gods. And so why did that Sabbath day switch to Sunday? A lot of you probably don't know. I didn't know this growing up, but it has to do with rulings and councils. And it's the 59th ruling, to be specific, of the Council of Laodicea, and it was by authority of the Pope, not authority of the Most High or the disciples or Yeshua, but the Pope. And so Canon 29 is where we see this take shape. And Canon 29 states that Christians, because people were starting to keep Sabbath, there was a major persecution going on, and people were shifting and changing their ways and studying the scriptures they had. There was no New Testament until a little bit later. And so you had people going and studying the commandments and becoming followers of Yeshua and doing the things he did. And this was persecuted. And so they needed councils in place to stop people from doing these things. And so right here in Canon 29, it says Christians must not Judaize, there's that word, by resting on the Sabbath, but must work on that day. So they're given a command to work on the Father's set apart day, rather honoring, it says, the Lord's day, and if they can, only if they can, resting then. So they didn't even have to rest on Sunday, the day of the sun, like Constantine called it. They could, though. And so you see that same mindset thousands of years later. It's crazy. Or I wouldn't say thousands of years, it's less than 2,000 years later. We have that exact same mindset. And so it says, but if any shall be found to be Judaizing, in other words, keeping the original commandments, all 10 of them, let them be cut off from Christ, or anathema from Christ. I believe that just means to be cut off, separated. So they're the outcast. And so it was actually illegal, set into law. Those canons were sets of laws. You had to work on the Sabbath. And we're going to see later why I think that is a huge deal, going against the Most High's commandments and adopting the traditions of men. And so that's the canons. I want to look at the faith aspect of it because faith is a big deal. This isn't about just works alone or being justified by works. There is the faith aspect. And when you look at Revelation, it talks about that dragon being at war with those that keep the commandments. And it's not just the commandments. What else is there? It's those that also have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Both. And that's why in 1 John it tells us, and hereby we do know that we know him if we keep his commandments. He that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. And now I'm not saying that to condemn people, because I was keeping 9 commandments and I loved the Most High and was really feeling like I was doing everything exactly right and that I had it all figured out. But it's about understanding his commandments and learning and seeking. He knows your heart. He knows your desire, and he will reveal things to you when you fully seek and are ready for it. And I like what it goes on to say here when it says, but whosoever keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of God perfected. Hereby know we that are in him, he that saith he abideth in him ought himself also to walk even as he walked. Talking about the Messiah, walking as he walked. And he took a lot of steps that made the world dead set against him, wanting to kill him, the people who kept the traditions of men, just like you see now. Back then, they had the Pharisees. Now we've got types of people, the anti-missionaries, I would say, and they're against the Messiah still to this day. But we also have the Church of Rome aspect that is against people who are what they called back then Judaizers, or those that are keeping the 10 Commandments. And so it was illegal back then. And I feel like this could happen very soon when you see a lot of the things happening. The red heifers, the temple being built, this lawless one that's going to be in that temple. These things are happening fast, and it's prophetic. And so we have to be ready. We have to not take that mark, which, in my opinion, relates to taking the mark of the Most High. Which, what was it? Well, when we look back to Deuteronomy chapter 6, it says, Hear, O Israel, our God, Yahuwah, is one, and thou shalt love Yahuwah with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, And they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. Sounds a lot like the mark of the beast, only it's the opposite. It's perfect. It's the way we want to be marked or sealed for the Most High. We want to love Him with all of our hearts. We want to do the things, like it said in prophecy, that please Him. It's going to be an interesting journey really soon with a lot of the things that are going to happen. And so I wanted to share some of these things, hopefully plant some seeds and clear up confusion. There's so many more verses I wanted to go into, but I think for the sake of time and clarity, I just stuck to the basics. And so I hope this clears up confusion. There's again, there's going to be a time where you're going to have to decide, am I going to do what the Most High wants me to do? Or am I going to listen to these traditions of men like people were doing back then? They were forced to keep the new Sabbath. They were forced to keep the day of the sun, like Constantine said. And so we have a decision to make. Pray about it, look into it. It's been a blessing for me. I was afraid to do it. Again, I thought I was going to be under some curse. I thought that the law was a curse. I didn't realize it was referring to the curses of the law, which are if you break the law, there's going to be curses, but if you keep it, there's going to be blessings. And so there's that aspect of it. But I want you guys to understand that this is not going to be something that makes you popular. It's not going to be something that doesn't cause division. And it's heartbreaking to see the false understandings played out, the things that people think about us, hearing them out loud when they're saying them, it's hurtful. And so I want you guys to understand, if you've been persecuted by your family or, just for changing your diet, eating clean, keeping the Sabbath, you're not alone. And you're going through stuff that people have gone through for thousands of years. And so have joy in the persecution. It's hard to, and I've had to experience, I know many of you have experienced it as well, to endure that. It's not something that seems joyful at the time, but we're told to count it all as joy. And it is something that real soon, when the Most High sets up his kingdom on this earth, that millennial kingdom with him and the beloved Son. We see Yeshua returning. Like he says, he's going to come quick. We're not going to see him start to appear and then have all this time to figure everything out. It's going to happen quickly. Okay. And so when this happens, like it says, when that kingdom is set up, there's only going to be one king. There's not going to be any more kings. His law is going to go forth out of Zion. The ones outside the camp, the survivors of what happens at Armageddon, those are going to be on a path for righteousness. The deceiver is going to be bound. It's going to be different. Okay, people are going to start learning these things again, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be something that we're all looking forward to. That first resurrection is what we hope to be a part of. Blessed are those who are a part of that, because they're not going to die the second death. We're here trying to get people to avoid that second death. And it's something that is also, that belief is frowned upon. The church back then wanted people to believe that if they stepped away from the church, they were going to burn and be reanimated forever and ever for all eternity. But there's the second death. It is a burning, it is a punishment. And there are levels now. I'm understanding the holding place, essentially Sheol. It's a lot that we're learning and taking in. I don't want to get into all the history or I guess that aspect of the Bible. Um, but it is important to understand the fate of the wicked. But it's different than what the church has taught us, just like the commandments are different than what the church has taught us. They apply to us today, unlike what we've been taught. And so I hope this really does help bring some clarity to people who are confused, and maybe gives you something to share with family members who are confused about why you're doing what you're doing. And so I'm going to probably talk about this again, maybe in a live format, so you guys can ask questions and get some more clarity. Because again, there's a lot of verses I had in my notes, and I've only covered a fraction. And so I want to cut it short. And just thank you guys for being a part of this journey. We have so many supporters who are doing studies with us and seeking these things out, and it's really helped. Especially, with my wife being right there. I want to thank her and the Most High for blessing me with a good wife who has helped bring so much clarity to my walk. Even though I used to be angry at the things she believed in, like a lot of you are angry at me, I used to be angry at her, and we would just butt heads when it came to the Sabbath. And I'm blessed that we can now both see eye to eye and have that same blessing in spite of all the division it's caused. It's been a blessing, and the amount of spiritual growth that I've had in the past few years has been far beyond what it ever has in my life. And it's only taken a few small changes. It's not been a burden. It's like it says in the New Testament, it's not grievous to us at all. When we keep his commandments, it's something that we're doing for the love of God, not that we're justified by works now or Judaizing. And so, anyways, I love you guys. I want to go ahead and end this so that you can get back to your studies and what you're doing. But you all are a blessing. And I thank you to our supporters who are working to share these things for us, for the Father, really, not just for me, but for the Father. It's not to have our platform grow, but to have the kingdom grow. And so we thank you. We love you. The Father loves you. And we'll see you around real soon.
Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments. If ye shall ask anything in my name, I will do it. If ye love me, keep my commandments. And I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another Comforter, that he may abide with you forever, even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him. But ye know him, for he dwelleth with you, and shall be in you. I will not leave you comfortless. I will come to you. He that hath my commandments, and keepeth them, he it is that loveth me. And he that loveth me shall be loved of my Father, and I will love him, and will manifest myself to him. If ye keep my commandments, ye shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments, and abide in his love. These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. They were gathered together. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him, and saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. And hereby we do know that we know him, if we keep his commandments. He that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of God perfected. Hereby know we that we are in him. He that saith he abideth in him ought himself also so to walk, even as he walked. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and keep his commandments. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. For whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God, and the faith of Jesus. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. And behold, one came and said unto him, Good Master, what good thing shall I do, that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep the commandments. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus.